Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished checking the last air filter in Section C. The diplomatic dinner was starting in 2 hours. He wanted to make sure everything ran perfectly. The Youth Harmony had been his home for 8 months now, but tonight felt different. Tonight they were hosting the Kelari delegation for the first time. He had seen pictures of the Kelari before, but Jake was still curious about meeting them in person. Captain Rodriguez had briefed the entire crew about proper behavior during the dinner. No sudden movements, no loud noises, and definitely no personal comments about their appearance. The peace treaty between humans and the Kelari depended on making a good impression. Jake changed into his dress uniform and made his way to the main dining hall. The room looked impressive, with its polished metal tables and soft lighting. Human and Kelari flags hung side by side on the walls. He took his assigned seat near the middle of the room, between Dr. Alan Foster and engineer Carlos Webb. "Nervous?" Carlos asked, adjusting his collar. "Not really," Jake replied. "Just excited to see what they look like up close." The main doors opened with a soft hiss. Captain Rodriguez entered first, followed by 5 tall figures that made Jake's jaw drop slightly. The Kelari were much more impressive than any picture had shown. They walked upright like humans, but were clearly reptilian. Their skin was covered in smooth scales that shifted color in the light. Each one was at least 7 feet tall with long, powerful limbs, but what really caught Jake's attention was their tails. Each Kelari had a thick tail that reached nearly to the floor. The tails moved constantly, swishing back and forth as they walked. The scales on the tails seemed brighter than the rest of their bodies, displaying patterns of color that changed. As Jake watched, the lead Kelari stepped forward. Captain Rodriguez gestured toward the group. "May I present Ambassador Zaraketh and the Kelari diplomatic team?" Jake found himself staring at the ambassador. She was stunning in a way he had never expected. Her scales were a deep emerald green that seemed to glow under the dining room lights. But her tail was something else entirely. It displayed swirling patterns of blue and silver that moved like water. Every few seconds, the colors would shift to show new designs. The formal introductions continued for several minutes. Each Kelari had a different color pattern on their scales. Jake noticed that their tails seemed to respond to their emotions. When Ambassador Zaraketh spoke about the trade agreements, her tail showed steady bands of gold. When Elder Dekmore discussed military cooperation, his tail displayed sharp red lines. Dinner began with traditional human dishes served alongside Kelari protein cubes. The conversation was polite, but careful. Both sides were clearly trying to avoid saying anything that might cause offense. Jake found himself watching Ambassador Zaraketh as she spoke. Her voice was clear and strong, and she seemed to understand. Human customs better than he had expected, the negotiations moved to the main trade agreement. Ambassador Zaraketh pulled out a holographic display showing shipping routes between Earth and Kelthara Prime. As she explained the benefits of the new partnership, her tail began showing the most beautiful pattern Jake had ever seen. Waves of purple and gold flowed along its length, creating spirals that seemed to dance in the air. Jake leaned over to Carlos. "Look at that," he whispered. "Her tail is like a living work of art." Carlos nodded but kept his attention on the presentation. Ambassador Zaraketh was discussing the exchange of technology and resources. The human representatives asked several questions about manufacturing capabilities and quality control. Each time she answered, her tail displayed different patterns. When the Kelari agreed to share their advanced water purification technology, her tail exploded into brilliant shades of orange and pink. The patterns moved faster now, creating designs that reminded Jake of fireworks. It was clear that she was excited about the agreement. The formal negotiations concluded successfully. Both sides had agreed to a comprehensive trade partnership that would benefit everyone. Ambassador Zaraketh stood to make a closing statement. She spoke about friendship between their species. Her tail showed the most spectacular display. Yet, colors that Jake had never seen before rippled along its surface. Bands of silver and gold created intricate knots that untied and reformed in new patterns. The beauty of it made Jake smile. Without thinking about protocol or diplomatic rules, He caught her eye and said, "Nice tail." The words left his mouth. Before he could stop them, the entire room fell silent. Every human in Kelari stopped talking and turned to look at him. Ambassador Zarakith's tail suddenly flashed brilliant gold and crimson, colors so bright they seemed to light up the entire room. Jake felt his face turn red. He had broken the most basic rule of the evening: do not make personal comments. Captain Rodriguez was staring at him with wide eyes. Dr. Foster looked like he might faint.
Ow.
The other Kelari were completely still, their own tails showing muted. Colors. Ambassador Zaraketh slowly turned toward Jake, her green eyes fixed on his face. For a long moment, nobody moved or spoke. Then she began walking toward him. Her tail continued to flash gold and crimson as she approached. Jake wanted to sink into his chair and disappear. She stopped directly in front of him. Jake could see the intricate patterns on her scales up close. Each one was perfectly formed, like a tiny work of art. Her tail curved around to one side, still displaying those brilliant colors. Ambassador Zaraketh reached out with one clawed hand and placed it gently on Jake's shoulder. Her grip was firm, but not painful. She looked down at him with what might have been a smile, though it was hard to tell with her reptilian features. "I accept your proposal, husband-to-be," she said in perfect English. The room erupted into chaos. Human voices rose in confusion, while the Kelari began speaking rapidly in their own language. Jake sat frozen in his chair, staring up at the ambassador. Her tail continued to flash those amazing colors as she waited for his response. Captain Rodriguez jumped to her feet. "I think there has been some kind of misunderstanding," she said quickly. Dr. Foster was already pulling out his tablet, frantically searching through files on Kelari customs. Elder Thekmore stepped forward and spoke to Ambassador Zaraketh. In their language, she responded without taking her eyes off Jake. "No misunderstanding," she said to the room. "The human Jake Martinez has made a formal proposal according to our customs. I have accepted. We will now begin the 7 days of bonding." Jake finally found his voice. "I was just saying your tail looks nice. I did not propose marriage." Ambassador Zaraketh tilted her head slightly. "Among my people, to compliment a female's tail is to offer marriage. You have chosen me as your mate. I have chosen to accept." Dr. Foster looked up from his tablet with a pale face. "Captain, I think we have a serious diplomatic situation here." Captain Rodriguez called for an emergency meeting in Conference Room Alpha. Jake sat at the long table feeling like his world had just turned upside down. Ambassador Zaraketh sat beside him, her tail still showing those bright gold and crimson colors. The other Kelari delegation members sat across from them while Dr. Foster frantically searched through his research files. "Doctor, please explain what just happened," Captain Rodriguez said. Dr. Foster cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. "According to my research on Kelari culture, complimenting a female's tail is indeed equivalent to a marriage proposal. The tail displays emotional and reproductive status among their species. When Jake said nice tail to Ambassador Zaraketh, he was essentially saying he found her suitable as a mate and wanted to marry her." Jake felt his stomach drop. "But I was just being friendly. I thought her tail looked pretty," Elder Thekmore spoke up from across the table. "Among our people, the tail is sacred. It shows our true feelings and our health. To compliment a female's tail means you have observed her closely and found her worthy. It is not something said casually." "What happens now?" Captain Rodriguez asked. Ambassador Zaraketh turned to face Jake. "We begin the 7 days of bonding. During this time, we will live together and learn about each other. At the end of 7 days, we will complete the marriage ceremony or agree that we are not compatible. And if Jake refuses," Captain Rodriguez asked carefully. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Elder Decamore's tail showed sharp red patterns. To refuse would mark him as honorless. It would be a grave insult to Ambassador Zaraketh and to our entire people. The trade agreement would be impossible.
Doctor.
Foster nodded grimly. "Captain, this could destroy our entire diplomatic relationship with the Kelari. They take these customs very seriously." Jake looked around the table at all the faces staring at him. The weight of human-Kelthari relations suddenly rested on his shoulders. He thought about the years of careful negotiations that had led to this moment. All of it could be ruined because he had made one careless comment. What exactly happens during these 7 days? Jake asked. Ambassador Zarakith's tale shifted to softer blue and silver patterns. We share living space. We eat meals together. We learn about each other's cultures and values. We determine if we are compatible as life partners. And at the end, if we are compatible, we marry. If not, we part as friends with no shame to either party. But you must participate fully in the 7 days. To do otherwise would still be considered an insult. Jake took a deep breath. He thought about his simple life as a maintenance engineer. This morning, his biggest worry had been checking air filters. Now he was engaged to an alien ambassador. Okay, he said finally. I will do the 7 days. Got your Zaraketh's tale. Flashed bright gold again. Excellent. I will move my belongings to your quarters immediately. Captain Rodriguez looked relieved but concerned. Jake, are you sure about this? Do I have a choice? Jake replied. If this is what it takes to save the peace treaty, then I will do it. 2 hours later, Jake stood in his small quarters watching Ambassador Zaraketh arrange her belongings. She had several large cases filled with items he did not recognize. Strange devices that hummed softly and crystals that glowed with inner light. She moved with graceful efficiency, her tail swaying gently as she worked. Where will you sleep? Jake asked, looking at his single bed. Kelthari do not sleep like humans, she replied. I will rest in a meditation pose for 4 hours each night. I require only a small space. She set up what looked like a meditation mat in the corner of the room. The materials seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal when she stepped on it. The surface molded itself to support her body perfectly. This is very different from what I expected, Jake said. Ambassador Zaraketh looked at him with those large green eyes. You may call me Zara. We are to be bonding partners for the next 7 days. Formality is not necessary. Zara, Jake repeated. That is a pretty name. You can call me Jake. Shh. Her tail showed soft purple patterns. Jake, it is a strong name.
Tell
me about your work on this ship. Jake found himself explaining his job as a maintenance engineer. He talked about keeping the life support systems running and maintaining the ship's equipment. To his surprise, Zara seemed genuinely interested. She asked detailed questions about the ship's environmental controls and power distribution systems. On Kelthara Prime, I work with atmospheric processors, Zara said. They maintain the air quality in our cities. The technology sounds similar to your life support systems. You are an engineer too? Jake asked. Among my people, all diplomats must have technical expertise. We believe that those who negotiate trade agreements should understand what they are trading. Jake felt a spark of interest. He had expected Zara to be completely alien, impossible to relate to. But discovering they shared similar work made her seem more real somehow. They spent the evening talking about engineering problems and solutions. Zara explained how Kelthari atmospheric processors use biological filters that could adapt to changing conditions. Jake described the redundant safety systems that kept human ships running during emergencies. Your people are very careful about safety, Zara observed. Space is dangerous, Jake replied. One small mistake can kill everyone on board. The same is true for our cities. If the atmospheric processors fail, thousands die within hours. As the ship's lights dimmed to simulate night, Zara took her position on the meditation mat. Her tail curled around her body, showing calm blue patterns. Jake lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling. Jake, Zara said softly. Yes, I know this. Situation is strange for you. It is strange for me as well. I've never bonded with an alien before. Are you nervous? Yes, but also curious. Your people interest me. You are very different from what I expected. Different how? More kind, more thoughtful. I was told humans were aggressive and selfish. Jake turned to look at her in the dim light. Some of us are, but most of us just want to live in peace and take care of our families. That is what we want as well, Zara said. The next morning, Jake woke to find Zara already awake and preparing what looked like breakfast. She had somehow obtained Kelari food from the ship's stores. "I thought we should share meals," she said. Part of the bonding process. The food was surprisingly good, tasted like a mixture of fish and vegetables with spices Jake could not identify. Zara ate with delicate movements, using tools that looked like a cross between chopsticks and forks. "Do we do today?" Jake asked. "I would like to see your work." To understand what you do on this ship, Jake spent the morning showing Zara around the maintenance sections. She was fascinated by everything, asking questions about every system and component. Her tail showed bright orange patterns that Dr. Foster had told him indicated excitement. An interest, when they reached the main environmental control room, Zara stopped and stared at the displays. "This is beautiful," she said. "The way you monitor all the ship's systems from one location?" "It took years to design," Jake said proudly. "Every critical system feeds data here." Zara moved closer to examine the control panels. Caro's tail was practically glowing with golden patterns. "On my world, we use distributed control systems. Each processor manages itself independently. That sounds more efficient. Perhaps we could combine both approaches. Central monitoring with distributed control." Jake found himself getting excited about the possibilities. He had never thought about improving the ship's systems before, but Zara's ideas made sense. They spent the rest of the day discussing engineering concepts. By evening, Jake realized he had not thought about the marriage situation for hours. He had just been enjoying talking to someone who understood his work. As they prepared for their second night together, Jake felt less nervous than before. Zara was not the alien monster he had feared. She was intelligent, curious, and seemed to genuinely care about his thoughts and feelings, but he still had 5 more days to figure out if he could really marry someone from another species. And despite their growing friendship, Jake was not sure he was ready for that kind of commitment. On the 3rd morning of their bonding period, Jake woke to the sound of emergency alarms blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in his quarters as the ship's computer announced a critical system failure. Zara was already standing, her tail showing sharp yellow and red patterns that Jake had learned meant alarm and urgency. "Environmental systems failure in Section D," the computer voice repeated. "All engineering personnel report immediately." Jake jumped out of bed and grabbed his work clothes. "I have to go." "This sounds serious." "I am coming with you," Zara said, already moving toward the door. "You do not have to." "This is not your problem." Zara's tail flashed bright red. "If the environmental systems fail, everyone on this ship dies. That includes both our peoples. This is very much my problem." They ran through the corridors together, joining streams of other crew members heading toward the emergency stations. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system, calm but urgent. "All non-essential personnel report to emergency stations. Engineering teams to Section D immediately." This is not a drill. Jake and Zara reached Section D to find chaos. Smoke was pouring from several control panels, while sparks flew from damaged circuits. The air felt thick and hard to breathe. Dr. Foster was there with his medical kit, treating 2 engineers who had been hurt by electrical burns. Chief Engineer Lisa Murphy saw Jake and waved him over. "Jake, thank God you are here. We have lost primary life support for the entire ship. Secondary systems are failing fast." "What happened?" Jake asked, grabbing tools from the emergency kit. "We are not sure. Everything just started failing at once, like the systems are fighting each other. Instead of working together." Jake looked at the damage and felt his heart sink. Years of careful engineering had been destroyed in minutes. Circuits that should never interact with each other had somehow connected and burned out. It would take days to repair everything. And they did not have days. "How long do we have?" he asked. 18 hours, maybe less, Lisa replied. "After that, the backup systems will fail and we all suffocate." Zara moved closer to examine the damaged panels. Her tail had turned a steady, blue-green color that Jake now recognized as her thinking pattern. She ran her clawed fingers over the burnt circuits, careful not to touch anything that might still be electrified. "This damage pattern is familiar," she said. I have seen something like this before. Where? Jake asked. On Kelthara Prime. When? We first tried to integrate our biological processors with mechanical systems. Out. The two technologies fought each other until both failed. Jake stared at her. You think our human systems are interfering with Kelthari technology? It is possible. Your ship has been modified to accommodate our delegation. New air recyclers, water purifiers, even communication systems. What if they are not compatible? With your existing equipment, Chief Murphy overheard their conversation. That would explain why everything failed at once. But how do we fix it? Zara's tail showed rapid orange patterns. We need to examine both systems together. Find where they are interfering and create a bridge between them. A bridge? Jake asked. A translator, something that lets both technologies work together instead of fighting. Jake felt a spark of excitement despite the crisis, like a universal interface, something that speaks both languages. Exactly. They spent the next 4 hours crawling through maintenance tunnels and examining every system on the ship. Jake handled the human technology while Zara analyzed the Kelthari additions. Slowly, they began to understand what had gone wrong. Problem was in the environmental control network. Human systems use digital signals to communicate, sending information in precise packets of data. Kelthari systems use biological signals, sending chemical and electrical impulses that changed continuously like living organisms. When the two systems tried to communicate, the digital signals confused the biological ones. The biological systems thought they were being attacked by a virus and shut down to protect themselves. This caused the human systems to overload as they tried to compensate for the missing Kelthari equipment. We need something that can translate between them, Jake said, wiping sweat from his forehead. But how do you build a translator for completely different types of signals? Zara was studying a schematic on her portable display. What if we do not translate? What if we create a hybrid system that uses both types of signals? Biological-digital interface. Yes, the biological components handle adaptation and self-repair. The digital components provide precision and coordination. Jake thought about it. The idea was brilliant, but incredibly complex. They would need to redesign critical systems while the ship was dying around them. They only had 14 hours left. Can we do it in time? He asked. Zara's tail showed determined gold patterns. We have to try. They divided the work between them. Jake began modifying the digital control systems, adding new pathways that could handle biological signals. Zara worked on the Kelthari equipment, programming it to accept digital commands while maintaining its biological functions. The work was exhausting and dangerous. They had to make changes to live systems while the ship's life support continued to fail. The air grew thinner and harder to breathe. Several times they had to stop when sparks flew from their modifications. Other crew members helped where they could. Carlos brought them food and water. Dr. Foster monitored their health to make sure they did not collapse from exhaustion. Captain Rodriguez coordinated with both human and Kelthari teams to implement their changes throughout the ship. As the hours passed, Jake found himself working in perfect coordination with Zara. She seemed to know what he needed before he asked for it. When he struggled with a complex biological interface, she would quietly suggest a solution. When she had trouble with digital programming, he would show her the human approach. Her tail stayed a calm blue-green most of the time. But Jake noticed flashes of purple and gold when they solved particularly difficult problems. He was beginning to understand that those colors meant she was happy and excited. Jake, she said during a brief rest period, I have never worked with anyone like this before. What do you mean?
Oh, my world.
We work alone or in formal teams with rigid roles. But with you, it feels like we are thinking with the same mind. Jake felt a warm feeling in his chest. I know what you mean. It is like you understand my ideas before I finish explaining them. Is this normal for human partnerships? Jake thought about his previous relationships. He had dated several women, but none of them had really understood his work or shared his interests. No, this is special. With 6 hours left before life support failed, they finished their modifications. The new hybrid system was untested and experimental, but it was their only hope. Jake's hand shook as he prepared to activate it. What if it does not work? He asked. Zara placed her clawed hand on his shoulder. Then we die together, knowing we tried our best. Jake looked into her green eyes and felt something shift inside him. This alien woman had risked her life to save his ship and his people. She had worked beside him for hours without complaint, sharing her knowledge and skills freely. Whatever he had felt for her before, it was growing into something deeper. Ready, he asked. Ready. Jake activated the new system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the damaged displays began to flicker back to life. Clean air started flowing through the vents. Emergency lights changed from red to green dot. Had done it. Ship was saved. Zara's tail exploded into the most beautiful pattern Jake had ever seen. Gold and silver spirals danced along its length while flashes of pure white light pulsed through the design. She was so happy that her colors were almost too bright to look at without thinking. Jake pulled her into a hug. She felt warm and solid. In his arms, her scales smooth against his skin, her tail wrapped partway around him, still showing those amazing colors. We did it, he whispered. Yes, she replied, her voice soft. We did. As they held each other in the repaired engineering section, Jake realized that something important had changed. He was no longer thinking about how to get out of their marriage. Arrangement. Instead, he was starting to wonder what it would be like to stay in it. The morning after they saved the ship, Jake woke to find Elder Thekmore standing in his quarters. The old Kelthari's tail showed formal silver and black patterns as he looked down at Jake with ancient eyes. Zara was already awake, sitting on her meditation mat with her own tail, displaying respectful blue colors. Jake Martinez, Elder Thekmore said in his deep voice, "You have shown courage and skill in the crisis. But courage alone does not make a worthy mate. Today we begin the tests of worth." Jake sat up in bed, still confused from sleep. Test Zara turned to face him. It is tradition. During the 7 days of bonding, the elders test the proposed mate to determine if they are suitable. I should have explained this earlier. What kind of tests? Jake asked, getting out of bed and reaching for his clothes. Elder Thekmore's tail shifted to show patient gold patterns. 3 tests. The first is wisdom. Can you think like one of our people? The second is courage. Will you protect others? Before yourself? The third is character. Are you truly the person you appear to be? Jake felt nervous butterflies in his stomach. And if I fail, then the bonding ends, and you are marked as unworthy. No Kelthari would ever consider you as a mate, but our diplomatic relationship would survive, Jake asked, thinking about Captain Rodriguez's concerns. Perhaps, but Ambassador Zaraketh would be shamed. It would damage her standing among our people. Jake looked at Zara, who was watching him quietly. Her tail showed muted colors that he could not read. He realized that his performance in these tests would affect her life as much as his own. When do we start? He asked. Now. Elder Thekmore led them to a conference room that had been transformed into something resembling a Kelthari temple. Strange symbols covered the walls, and crystals that hummed with energy sat on pedestals around the room. Other members of the Kelthari delegation were there, their tails all showing formal ceremonial patterns. In the center of the room sat a large crystal cube covered with moving lights. The lights formed complex patterns that shifted and changed as Jake watched. It was beautiful, but also confusing. The first test, Elder Thekmore announced. The puzzle of understanding. You must find the pattern that connects all patterns. Stared at the cube. The lights moved in what seemed like random directions, creating shapes that appeared and disappeared without any obvious logic. Some lights were bright, others dim. Some moved fast, others moved slowly. He had no idea where to start. How long do I have? He asked. As long as you need, Elder Thekmore replied. But know that most candidates solve it within 2 hours, or not at all. Jake circled the cube, studying it from different angles. The patterns were definitely not random. There was something deliberate about the way they moved. But he could not figure out what connected them. After 30 minutes, Jake felt frustrated. He was good at solving mechanical problems, but this was completely different. The The patterns seemed to follow rules he did not understand. Zara moved closer to him. Remember, she said quietly, "You are not trying to think like a human. You are trying to think like a Kelari." Jake looked at her tail, which was showing soft purple and gold swirls. Then he looked back at the cube and suddenly understood. The patterns were not mechanical or mathematical. They were emotional. He had been watching Zara's tail for days, learning to read the colors and movements that showed her feelings. The cube was doing the same thing, showing emotions through color and movement. Jake studied the patterns again, this time looking for emotional connections instead of logical ones. A bright yellow pattern that moved quickly, excitement. A slow blue pattern that pulsed gently, contentment. Red patterns that flashed suddenly, anger or alarm. The key was understanding that the patterns were not separate. They were all part of one emotional story, like watching someone's feelings change throughout a day. "It is a life story," Jake said suddenly. The patterns show someone growing up, falling in love, facing challenges, and finding peace. Elder the Kimura's tail flashed bright gold. "Correct? You see with understanding, not just with eyes?" The second test took place in the ship's holographic training room. Elder Thechmore had programmed a simulation that looked like a Kelthari city during an emergency. Buildings were collapsing and people were trapped in the wreckage. "You have limited time and resources," Elder Thechmore explained. "You can save some people, but not all. Choose wisely." Jake found himself standing in the simulated disaster zone. Smoke filled the air, and he could hear cries for help coming from different directions. In front of him were tools and equipment he could use for rescue operations. To his left, he could hear human voices calling for help from a collapsed building. To his right, Kelthari voices were crying out from under fallen debris. Straight ahead, a mixed group of humans and Kelthari were trapped in a burning structure. Jake realized this was not just about courage. It was about character. Would he save his own people first? Would he try to save the most people possible? Or would he make decisions based on other factors? He thought about what Zara had taught him about Kelthari values. They believed in protecting the vulnerable and putting the community before the individual. They also valued those who could bridge differences between groups. Jake made his choice, went straight ahead to the mixed group. Humans and Kelthari working together were rare and valuable. If he could save them, they might be able to help. Save others. It was the hardest rescue. The building was more damaged and the situation more dangerous. But Jake worked carefully, using his engineering knowledge to shore up the structure while he got people out. Some of the rescued Kelthari were engineers, who then helped him save others. By the time the simulation ended, Jake had saved fewer total people than he might have if he had chosen easier rescues. But the people he saved included key individuals, who then helped save many more. "You chose the difficult path that led to the greater good," Elder Thechmore said when the simulation ended. "This shows wisdom and courage together." The third test was different. Elder Thechmore told Jake to go about his normal day, but did not explain what was being tested. Jake suspected he was being watched, but he tried to act naturally. He went to work in the engineering section, had lunch with Carlos, and spent time with Zara working on improvements to their hybrid environmental system. He tried to be himself, treating everyone with the same respect and kindness he always showed. During lunch, Carlos mentioned that one of the junior engineers, a young woman named Maria Santos, was struggling with her assignments and worried about being transferred off the ship. After lunch, Jake found Maria in the break room looking upset. He sat down with her and spent an hour helping her understand the systems she was having trouble with. He did not think about being tested or observed. He just saw someone who needed help. Later, he helped an older crew member named Pete Williams carry some heavy equipment, even though it was not his job. When Zara mentioned she was homesick for Kelthara Prime, Jake spent time listening to her talk about her home world and asking questions that showed he cared about her feelings. That evening, Elder Thechmore came to his quarters again. "The tests are complete," the elder announced. "You have shown wisdom by learning to see beyond your own perspective. You have shown courage by choosing the difficult path that serves the greater good. You have shown character by treating others with kindness even when you believe no one is watching. Jake felt relief wash over him, so I passed. Elder Thekmore's tail showed amused gold patterns. More than passed. You have impressed the entire delegation. You're worthy to bond with. Ambassador Zaraketh. Jake looked at Zara, who was sitting on her meditation mat with her tail showing colors he had never seen before. Bright purples and golds swirled together in patterns so beautiful they made his heart race. What do those colors mean? He asked. Her. They are the colors of joy and certainty, she replied softly. They appear only when a Kelthari finds their true life partner. Jake felt something warm and powerful growing in his chest. Over the past 4 days, Zara had become more than just a diplomatic obligation. She had become his partner, his friend, and something even deeper that he was just beginning to understand. But he still had 3 more days to figure out if he was ready to spend the rest of his life with someone from another world. And despite everything they had shared, Jake was not sure what his answer would be when the 7 days ended. Day 6 arrived with Jake feeling more confused than ever. He had passed all the tests, but that only made his decision harder. The Kelthari delegation respected him now. Zara looked at him with those beautiful green eyes that seemed to see straight into his soul. Tomorrow, he would have to choose whether to marry her or ask to be released from their bond. Jake sat alone in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars. He had asked for time to think, and Zara had understood. She was spending the day with her own people, probably discussing their future together. Mind if I join you? Captain Rodriguez asked, entering the quiet room. Please, Jake said, gesturing. To the chair beside him, Captain Rodriguez sat down and looked out at the same stars. Big decision ahead of you. The biggest of my life, Jake replied. A week ago, I was just a maintenance engineer. I'm supposed to decide if I want to marry an alien ambassador and change everything about my future. What does your heart tell you? Jake was quiet for a long moment. That is the problem. My heart tells me one thing, but my brain tells me another. Explain. When I am with Zara, everything feels right. We work together perfectly. We understand each other. She makes me want to be a better person. But then I think about the practical things. We are from different worlds, literally. What if we cannot make it work long term? What if I am just caught up in the excitement of something new? Captain Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. Those are fair concerns. But let me ask you something. Have you ever felt this way about anyone before? No, Jake admitted. Never anything close to this. And maybe that is your answer? After the captain left, Jake went to find Carlos in the engineering section. His best friend was working on routine maintenance, but he stopped when he saw Jake's serious expression. You look like someone who is about to make the hardest decision of his life, Carlos said. Because I am. Carlos, what would you do if you were me? Carlos set down his tools and leaned against the workbench. Honestly, I think you are crazy too. Even consider this. You have known her for 6 days, Jake. 6 days. People date for years before they get married. But those people are not facing a diplomatic crisis if they break up. That is not a good reason to get married, Carlos said. Firmly, Jake, you are my best friend. I want you to be happy. But I also do not want you to ruin your life because you feel pressured. Jake appreciated Carlos's honesty, even if it was not what he wanted to hear. What if I am not feeling pressured? What if I actually want this? Then you need to be sure it is real and not just the excitement of an impossible situation. Jake's next stop was Dr. Foster's laboratory. The xenobiologist was studying samples of Kelthari technology when Jake knocked on his door. Jake, come in. How are you feeling about tomorrow? Confused Dr. Foster. Can you tell me more about Kelthari relationships? What am I really signing up for if I marry Zara? Dr. Foster pulled up files on his computer. Kelthari marriages are very different from human ones. They're not just romantic partnerships. They are intellectual and professional collaborations. Kelthari couples work together on projects that benefit their entire society. That sounds like what Zara and I did with the environmental systems. Exactly. Among Kelthari, a successful marriage produces innovations and discoveries that neither partner could achieve alone. They believe two minds working in harmony can solve problems that would be impossible for one mind alone. Jake thought about how naturally he and Zara had worked together during the crisis. Or what about the emotional side? Kelari feel emotions? Deeply, but they express them differently than humans. That tail language you have been learning is just the beginning. They have complex ways of sharing feelings and thoughts that humans are only starting to understand. Dr. Foster paused and looked at Jake seriously. But here is what really matters. I have been studying Zara's tail patterns since she arrived. The colors she shows around you are extremely rare. According to my research, those particular patterns appear in less than 1% of Kelari relationships. What does that mean? It means what she feels for you is special, even by Kelari standards. If she was human, we would call it love at first sight. But for Kelari, it is something deeper. It is a recognition of a perfect complementary partner. 8. Left Dr. Foster's lab with even more to think about. He wandered the ship for hours, trying to sort through his feelings. Every conversation had given him a different perspective, but none had made his choice clearer. As evening approached, Jake found himself outside the quarters he shared with Zara. He could hear her moving around inside, preparing for their last night together before the decision. He stood in the hallway for several minutes, gathering his courage. When he entered, Zara was sitting on her meditation mat, but her eyes were open and looking toward the door. Her tail showed soft blue patterns mixed with touches of gold and purple. "How was your day?" she asked. "Difficult," Jake replied honestly. "Talked to several people about what I should do tomorrow. And what did they tell you?" "Different things. Some think I should be careful. Others think I should follow my heart." Zara's tail shifted to show gentle silver patterns. "What does your heart tell you?" Jake sat down on his bed, facing her. "That is what I wanted to talk to you about. Zara, I need to know something. When you accepted my proposal, was it just diplomatic duty? Or did you feel something real?" Zara was quiet for a long moment. Her tail showed complex patterns that shifted from blue to purple to gold and back again. "At first it was duty. I saw an opportunity to strengthen the bond between our peoples, but that changed quickly. When we worked together to save the ship, I've never experienced anything like that partnership. My world, we work, alone or in rigid formal teams. But with you, it felt like we shared the same mind, like we were two parts of one whole." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. "I felt the same thing. Jake, I must tell you something important. These feelings I have for you, they are not normal for my people. Kelari usually choose mates through careful negotiation and compatibility testing. Love, as humans call it, is rare among us. You feel it?" Zara's tail exploded into brilliant gold and crimson patterns. "Yes, I have never felt anything like this before. It frightens me." Jake stood up and moved closer to her. "It frightens me too. A week ago I never imagined I could feel this way about someone so different from me." "Are we being foolish?" Zara asked. "Maybe, but maybe being foolish is better than being safe." Zara rose from her meditation mat and moved to stand in front of Jake. She was taller than him, but somehow that made him feel protective rather than small. Her tail wrapped partway around him, showing those amazing colors that meant joy and certainty. "Jake, I want you to know that if you choose to end our bond tomorrow, I will understand. You did not ask for any of this. You should not feel trapped by my customs or my feelings." Jake looked into her green eyes and felt something click into place inside his chest. All the doubt and confusion of the day suddenly seemed unimportant. What mattered was the woman standing in front of him, offering to let him go because she cared about his happiness. "Zara," he said softly, "what if I do not want to be released? If I want to choose you, not because of duty or diplomacy, but because I cannot imagine my life without you." Her tail flashed so brightly with gold and silver that it lit up the entire room. "Do you mean that?" "I mean it. But I want to do this right. Tomorrow, when the 7 days are over, I want to propose to you properly, using human customs. I want you to have the choice to accept me because you want to, not because tradition requires it." Zara's colors shifted to patterns Jake had never seen before. They were soft and warm, like sunlight through water. Yes, she whispered. I would like that very much. As they held each other in the soft light of her tail, Jake realized that his choice was already made. Tomorrow, he would not just be fulfilling an obligation. He would be choosing love, partnership, and a future that was bigger and more amazing than anything he had ever imagined possible. The seventh day dawned with Jake feeling more nervous than he had ever been in his life. Today was the day he would either marry Zara or walk away from the most incredible week of his existence. But first, he had something important to do. Jake had spent most of the night working in the ship's fabrication lab, creating something special. Using his engineering skills and help from Carlos, he had made a ring that combined human and Kelari design elements. The band was made from titanium alloy used in ship construction, but embedded with crystals that changed color like Kelari tail patterns. You sure about this? Carlos asked, as they put the finishing touches on the ring. More sure than I have. Ever been about anything? Jake replied. The formal ceremony was scheduled for that evening. But Jake wanted to propose first. He found Zara in the observation deck where they had spent many hours talking over the past week. She was looking out at the stars, her tail showing peaceful blue patterns. Good morning, Jake said, his voice slightly shaky with nerves. Zara turned and smiled, the expression he had learned to recognize on her reptilian features. Good morning. Are you ready for today? Actually, before the ceremony, I have something I want to ask you. Jake got down on one knee, the traditional human proposal position. Zara's eyes widened, and her tail began showing rapid flashes of gold and silver. Zaraketh, ambassador of the Kelari people, brilliant engineer, and the most amazing woman I have ever met, Jake began, pulling out the ring he had made. A week ago, I accidentally proposed to you because I did not understand your customs. Today I want to propose to you properly because I understand my own heart. Zara's tail was now glowing so brightly that other crew members in the corridor stopped to look. You have shown me what it means to be truly partnered with someone. You make me think better, work better, and want to be better. I do not know what the future holds for us, but I know I want to face it together. Jake held up the ring, which was now pulsing with soft blue light from the embedded crystals. Zaraketh, will you marry me? Not because tradition requires it, but because we choose each other freely? Zara's tail displayed colors Jake had never seen before. They were warm and bright, like sunrise over a new world. She knelt down to be at his eye level and placed her clawed hands gently on his face. Jake Martinez, maintenance engineer, problem solver, and the kindest man in 2-star systems, she said, her voice filled with emotion. Yes, I will marry you. Because you have shown me what love feels like, and I never want to feel anything else. Jake slipped the ring onto her finger. Crystals immediately began pulsing in rhythm with her tail colors, creating a beautiful harmony of light. They kissed for the first time, a gentle touch that sent warmth through Jake's entire body. The wedding ceremony that evening was unlike anything anyone on the ship had ever seen. The main dining hall had been transformed into something that honored both human and Kelari traditions. Human flowers were arranged alongside Kelari light crystals. Earth music played softly while Kelari harmonic stones created undertones that seemed to resonate in everyone's bones. Jake wore his dress uniform. Carlos had helped him add decorative elements that reflected Kelari aesthetic values. Geometric patterns were embroidered on his jacket in threads that shifted color in the light, mimicking the way Kelari tails changed patterns. Zara wore something that took Jake's breath away. Her people had created a ceremonial robe that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. It flowed around her like water and somehow enhanced the natural beauty of her scales rather than hiding them. Her tail was decorated with bands of precious metals that told the story of their courtship and traditional Kelari symbols. Captain Rodriguez performed the human part of the ceremony, speaking about love, commitment, and partnership. Elder Thekmore handled the Kelari elements, which involved a complex ritual where Jake and Zara shared their thoughts and emotions through touch and color displays. Do you, Jake Martinez, take Zaraketh to be your wife, your partner, and your other half? Captain Rodriguez asked. I do, Jake said, looking into Zara's green eyes. Do you, Zaraketh, take Jake Martinez to be your husband, your bondmate, and your life companion? Elder Thekmore asked in both English and the flowing Kelari language. I do, Zara replied, her tail showing the most beautiful pattern Jake had ever seen. They exchanged rings, Jake's simple gold band and Zara's crystal creation. When the rings touched, both began glowing with soft light. A reaction that Dr. Foster would later explain was caused by Kelari, bioelectric fields. The ceremony concluded with both human cheering and the Kelari harmonic singing, a sound like wind chimes made of pure music. Jake and Zara kissed again, officially married under the laws of both their peoples. The celebration lasted late into the night. Crew members from both species shared food, stories, and laughter. Jake found himself amazed at how naturally humans and Kelari were interacting now. Their marriage had somehow broken down barriers that formal diplomacy could not touch. Dr. Foster approached them during the party with exciting news.
Jake, Zara, I have been monitoring the bio-readings from your rings. The reaction between humans,
Bioelectricity and Kelari crystal technology is creating some fascinating effects. I think you two might have accidentally discovered a new form of interspecies communication. What do you mean? Zara asked. Your emotional states are becoming synchronized through the rings. You are literally sharing feelings across species barriers. This could revolutionize how humans and Kelari interact. Jake squeezed Zara's hand and felt a warm pulse of contentment flow back to him through the ring. So we are not just married, we are a science experiment? The best kind, Zara laughed, her tail showing amused golden spirals. 3 months later, Jake and Zara were living together on the UES Harmony as it traveled between Earth and Kelthara Prime. They had established the Martinez-Keth Engineering Consortium, just as planned. And their first project was already changing lives on both worlds, working together. They had developed a new type of environmental system that could adapt to support multiple species simultaneously. Space stations and ships could now accommodate humans, Kelari, potentially other alien species all in the same environment. Jake was learning Kelari language and customs while Zara studied human history and culture. They spent hours every day working on projects that neither could have accomplished alone. Their success had inspired other interspecies partnerships, and several more human Kelari marriages were being planned. Do you ever regret it? Zara asked one evening as they sat in their quarters, working on designs for a new type of faster-than-light communication system. Regret what? Saying my tail was nice? Changing your entire life because of one casual comment? Stylison moved to sit beside his wife, her tail immediately wrapped around him, showing the soft purple and gold patterns that meant love and contentment. Never, he said firmly. That one comment led me to the best thing that ever happened. To me, even though you are now married to an alien who makes you eat strange food and sleep with crystal light shows, especially because of that, Zara's tail flashed with laughter patterns. Good, because I have news. The Kelari Science Council wants us to come to Kelthara Prime next month. They want to study our bioelectric connection and see if we can help develop new technologies. What kind of technologies? It's the kind that could help humans and Kelari explore the galaxy together. Imagine ships that could support both our peoples comfortably, crews that could communicate through bioelectric harmony like we do. Jake felt excitement building in his chest. A year ago, he had been a simple maintenance engineer with a small, predictable life. Now, he was married to an alien ambassador, pioneering new technologies, and about to help design the future of interspecies cooperation. It sounds incredible, he said. When do we leave? Next week. Are you ready to see my homeworld? Jake kissed his wife and felt her happiness flow through their connected rings. Her tail displayed the brilliant gold and crimson patterns that he now knew meant absolute joy and certainty about the future. With you, he said, I am ready for anything. As they held each other in the soft glow of Kelari crystals and human starlight, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed. One simple compliment had led to the greatest adventure he could have imagined. Sometimes the best things in life really did start with the most unexpected beginnings. Outside their window, stars wheeled slowly past as the EU's harmony carried. them toward their new future together. A future where love had built a bridge between worlds and where two very different people had found in each other exactly what they had been looking for without even knowing they were searching.